Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 8 of my Guitar Man Portrait series. And in this video we're going to start working on the hands, and we're also going to do a lot of detail work on the guitar. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the paint, brushes, and canvas that I use. The app that I'm using is Painter 2020 for Windows. And here I'm going to be working a little bit more on the elbow. I'm just trying to get the correct shape. And also the shadows underneath the elbow where it's resting on the guitar. We just want to try to get that shape correct, and so I'm working by adding a little bit of some burnt sienna or burnt umber color if you're following along with your acrylics, and using the real long bristle brush in Corel Painter 2020, which is sort of like a number 6 flat brush. And so I'm just kind of adding a little bit more shadow there, working on the tips of the fingers, trying to get that shape correct, and trying to add a little bit more of the highlights on the fingers, and adding a little bit more detail to the ring. I'm drawing a little bit of a darker line, a darker gray line around where the stone is, and that just gives it more depth and shows the setting on the ring. And then I'm working a little bit more on the fingers, adding a little bit of some dark brown underneath the little pinky finger there, and just kind of trying to get the overall shape correct. And so I'm working a little bit on the hand, putting dark lines there where the veins are and the knuckles are, and just sort of trying to do a little bit more of refinements to the hand there. So I'm adding a little bit of some dark brown there, and again I won't leave those as hard lines, because you don't want hard lines. You want softer lines, even though you want some detail on the fingers where you can see the knuckles and things. You still want those lines softened. So I'm using just add water, and then I'm working a little bit on the vest where it comes up to the edge of the hand there. Just trying to correct that and work a little bit more on the shape of the finger. And then adding a little bit of some highlight color, and you can take a light yellow or a light pink and just kind of add that along the edges, and that gives it the highlight color on the hands. And so I'm working on that a little bit, trying to add that on there. And then I have to go back and sort of fix the fingers again. You just have to keep doing that. You just go back and forth. If you smudge it out, then you need to go back and recorrect that and just kind of add the details back again. So I'm doing that. Also correcting the shapes just a little bit, working a little bit more on the shadowed look, just trying to get the overall shape of the fingers there. And this just takes time, because hands are hard to do. They're like painting another portrait, only you're doing portraits of hands. And you want to kind of try to get the correct detail, because people's hands are different. And so you want to go ahead and add all of his jewelry. And so I'm adding the other turquoise bracelet. And again, I'm using a mixture of ultramarine blue and phthalo yellow green to kind of, you would use that if you're doing your acrylics, to make the turquoise color with some white. And then I'm just working a little bit more on the edge of the guitar, trying to get the dark part there correct, and also the wrist, his wrist, and the palm of his hand, just trying to get that shape correct, and working on the wood of the guitar. And you would use yellow ochre and burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of burnt umber, if you're following along with your acrylics. And in here I'm working a little bit more on getting the shape of his elbow, trying to get the edge there and the shadows that are on his elbow. Working a little bit on the bracelet that he has and his wrist. Just trying to soften those edges and show the curves and the overall structure underneath the skin. And then here I'm working on the bracelet and trying to show individual beads, so you can highlight that with a lighter blue, and then add some white highlights to the silver bracelet that he has. And of course, don't forget the shadow underneath the turquoise, and you can use sort of a brownish color. And make sure that you get the shadow, because then it doesn't just look like there's a line on his skin. You want it to look three-dimensional, and you also want to curve the bracelet at the edges a little bit to show that it's going around his arm and not just stuck on there. And then here I'm working a little bit more on the guitar, trying to get that wood look. And I'm using the real long bristle because that gives kind of a dry brush look, and a dry brush look is when you take your flat brush or any other brush, but you take your paintbrush and you don't put a lot of water in it. You just kind of leave paint in it, but you let the paint sort of run out, and that gives it kind of a textured look, a wood textured look. So that's what I'm trying to do here, and just trying to follow the shape of the wood grain that's on the guitar. So I'm just kind of putting down strokes and adding different colors, adding the yellow ochre color and the burnt sienna color, just trying to kind of get the overall look of the guitar. And you can see that it's not just one flat color, because this is a wooden guitar. It's not made out of plastic. It's an actual wooden guitar. So you want to try to get the wood grain with that. And then here I've switched back to the overexposed picture so that I can get the look of that wood grain. I can see the details of it. And I'm just kind of working on the shape of the guitar, trying to get the outside edge correct, and trying to get the shape of it correct under his fingers, and trying to work on the edge. It has an inlay, a white inlay around the edge of the guitar, so I'm trying to use that to show the correct shape of the guitar. And then I'm going back and adding some light yellow color, because there's some light yellow sort of in this guitar. And then I'm working on the pickguard and all those different parts there and next to the neck. And so I just want to go ahead and kind of add a black color for the pickguard, and just go ahead and try to work on the shape, get the correct shape that goes around the sound hole there. And you just want to go ahead and try to get those lined up correctly with the edge of the guitar, because they're going to be centered in the guitar. So you want to try to make sure that you get that correct. And then I'm just working a little bit more on the shadow underneath his elbow, because his elbow casts a shadow because it's resting on the edge of the guitar. So you can use a light purple for that. And I'm using the soft airbrush, and you can just use a light glaze of paint if you're following along traditionally. And then here I'm just working a little bit more on the pickguard and trying to get the correct shape. And you want to go ahead and also work on the neck, because I don't have the neck completely correct. I'll have to go back and fix that. And then I'm working on the bridge a little bit and trying to get the shape of it and just get it all lined up with the edges of the guitar, trying to make it look straight. And you can just use your wood color to correct this. If you've already got it painted in, just go over it again with your wood color and just try to kind of get the overall shape of the bridge there, and I'm just working on it a little bit, trying to get it straight with the edge of the guitar. And you might want to turn your painting or your paper around when you do this, because you want to try to line it up. You can even use a little bit of a ruler or a T-square if you're following along traditionally. And so here I'm just kind of trying to get the shape of it correct and not have one edge be longer than the other one. And so I'm adding a little bit more of a lighter yellow there along it, and I'll smudge that out later and make it look like it's part of the wood grain. And just kind of have to do that. And so here then I'm turning it around so that I can kind of get it lined up with the edge of the guitar, and then I'm using the real long bristle and a dry brush type of stroke to give it the wood grain look. And so I'm just trying to see if things are lined up, and you can tell the neck is not, so I'm going to have to go back and work on the neck and move it over, and you'll just have to paint over it if you're following traditionally. But that's just part of painting. You just have to, if you don't get it correct, you have to go back over it and fix it. And so here I'm working on the guitar and fixing the shape of it. Unfortunately, I just add some more to the edge of that one. And so I'm using the white color, and then I'll come back in and fill it back up with the yellow ochre color here, and just kind of make it look more like wood grain. And since it's not all one solid color, then that works out well, because wood grain is going to have different variations. And so it doesn't matter if you have yellows or burnt siennas. You kind of want a different variation, but you do kind of want to give the paint strokes in one direction, because you want to make it look like it's the wood pattern. And so here I'm working on the guitar neck and trying to line it up with the bridge and the edge of the guitar, and I was using the straight line tool and Corel Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use a T-square or a ruler. And so I'm going to have to go ahead and paint over part of the neck that I already have there, and just use yellow ochre color. Now, if I had this on a separate layer, like I should have done, then I would have had to go back and do that. But this is just kind of like if you're painting traditionally, so it's not anything new to me. But if you do want to save yourself some time, put this on a separate layer. Probably the guitar should have been on a separate layer, but I didn't. So this is how you do it traditionally. And I'm just kind of working on the neck and fixing the shape there with some dark color. And I'm going to have to go ahead and add the background color over where I had the neck. And so I'll just have to get some more ultramarine blue and some white acrylic gesso, and just kind of go back over it and smooth it out, smudge it out, and then kind of go around in your painting and add that color. If it doesn't match the color that's there, and you're doing this traditionally, then just go around in your painting and add that blue color on the other side, so that it'll have color continuity in your painting. And that's just one of the little tricks that you do when you mess up. And then here I'm working on the sound hole and trying to get the correct shape there. And there is a round shape that you can use in Corel Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, maybe depending on how big your painting is, you could use a bottle cap, or you can use something that's a little round circle there, and that'll just kind of help you make a round shape instead of getting it real out of whack or making it oval like. And so I'm just kind of working on it around here, and I'll have to add the white lines there, but I'm trying to get the sound hole first. And you can use a dark purple for that, and I would recommend not a pure black, because we want to show that it's a shadow, that it's hollow and it's open. So a dark blue, a dark purple for that, just to show that the guitar has an opening in it, and that's not part of the decoration like the pickguard or the bridge or any of that. And here I'm working a little bit more on the shape of the pickguard again, and trying to soften around on the edges of the sound hole. And then I wanted to go ahead and draw the little white lines that are around it. And I didn't use any kind of guide for those. I just kind of eyeballed them, and then I'll kind of go back in and correct them, make them look a little bit more round. And you're going to have your strings go over the top of it, so that kind of will cover up some of that anyway. And then here I'm working a little bit more on the jeans, and I just want an indication of the jeans. We're going to darken those and sort of make those soften and go into the background, because I don't want big details on the jeans. I just want kind of a suggestion of them, because like I said before and the previous part, we want the focus to be on his face and his guitar and his hands. So we kind of want the edges of the painting to be soft and maybe not as distinct. And so that's what I'm doing, is adding a little bit of a darker blue there. And that also just helps keep the viewer's eye on the figure when you darken the edges of your paintings. And so here I'm doing that, and just kind of making it fade out, I guess. You kind of want to fade out the jeans into the background. So I want all this to be soft. I don't want any of these hard lines left there, so I'm add water in the Corel Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, just smudge all this out with your finger or a paper towel. And you can use a bigger brush for that. You can use a number 6 flat brush or something, but make sure that you smudge out all those lines. And you can make it look more painterly and leave brush strokes on that, and that just kind of helps with the focus on the face and the middle of the portrait. And so here I'm just kind of really smudging it out and not adding a whole lot of detail there. So this is the end of part 8 in my Guitar Man series. And in part 9, we're going to go ahead and work on the other hand and finish detailing the guitar. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button, and thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.